if you're an individual and you belong to the organization that is designated ISIS, and you believe that Sharia law is the way to go, and you believe that Sharia law should rule the world and should rule an individual's life, what a man or a woman can and cannot do, well, they should take their direction from Sharia law. If you're a Muslim, now I made a distinction there between ISIS and a regular Muslim, and you'll see why when I explain towards the end of this video. If you're a Muslim, however, and you study the Quran, you also do believe in Sharia law, and you believe that Sharia law is the way to please Allah, and that individuals should be ruled by Sharia law, and that the Sharia law tells you what you can and cannot do. Now, if you're into Christianity, it's the Bible that gives you your direction. Preacher man, fathers will tell you the Bible is the Word of God, and the Bible tells you what you can and cannot do. Now, within Christianity, that's a broad term. You can have many different denominations, many different organizations. So you could be a Baptist, you could be a Methodist, you could be a Pentecostal, you can be an Anglican. So there's many, many different denominations or organizations within Christianity. Now, I use that word organization on purpose because if you go into the laws, into the domestic Canadian laws, or United States of America, if you go into the laws, you'll see that no matter what denomination you belong to, no matter what type of Christianity you are following, if you go to church, the church has been designated in law an organization. It's a corporation. And you are part of that body. You are a member of that body. And as such, you are considered in law a statutory creature. You're not considered a man or a woman when you're in church having a church service. The law designates you a corporate body, and the law says that you are a statutory creature, and you are limited and abridged. And you can see this play out very simply. So for example, here in Canada, if you went to a Pentecostal church, they teach this doctrine, and they teach against homosexuality and lesbianism. It's their core doctrine, their core belief in most Pentecostal churches. So if you went there on a Sunday, when they were preaching, and the guy got up and he started saying, homosexuality is wrong, lesbianism is wrong, it's a sin, you're going to go to hell and all that. There are hate laws in Canada presently that have been put into force of law here in Canada, that you could go now and take that preacher man to court and say that he's spewing out hate, and he would have to stop preaching what he's preaching. Whether he believed it or not, whether he thought that the Bible said that he had the right to do it, he couldn't do it anymore. Why? Because preacher men and all the ones who belong to the churches, you're statutory creatures, and you are limited and you are controlled by statutory powers. And this is just one example. So if you're railing and saying these things are wrong, and Canada has declared that that's considered hate speech, well then you're going to suffer the consequences for doing that. Now, again, within Christianity you have Mormonism, and they follow the Book of Mormon. They claim along with the Bible, but they follow the Book of Mormon, and they say the Book of Mormon is what teaches you what you can and cannot do. Again, with Judaism, they follow Torah, their book, plus other things, but mainly the Torah. And it's the Torah that tells them what they can and cannot do. Now here, and again, if you go to a synagogue in law is considered a statutory creation. It's an organization under law. That's how it's structured. It's considered a corporation. Your church body, Baptist, Pentecostal, whatever it may be, it's considered a corporate body under law. It's a statutory creature. So Judaism, again, statutory creature. People who go to their synagogues are statutory creatures, and they're being led by the Torah. Torah tells them what they can and cannot do. Well, organization called Canada, right? Where we live here in Canada, we know it's a corporate body, it's an organization. And if you don't think it's a corporate body, then you need to go and watch some of my videos. And I'm sorry, you'll be waking up or awoken up to the real truth about this. Because although you may believe that Canada is for the people and by the people and the government of Canada is for the people, that's just a lying being fed to you. to make you believe that everything's okay and the government's here on your behalf, but it's not. From the very start, you look into Canada. Canada, the declaration of that word means it's a corporate body. And you look into the Constitution Act, and the one who has control of this corporate body is Her Majesty the Queen. She remains the executive power. She remains on top of the hierarchy structure. She's the head executive of this corporate body. After that, then comes the Governor General of Canada. The Governor General of Canada has been given the chief executive powers of this corporate body, and he delegates that to the minister. So all of the executive powers of Canada are working on behalf of Her Majesty. When you look at the oath of office that they take when they get into there, they say, I promise that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty the Queen, that I will serve the Queen. So from the commencement of the Constitution, the structure of the law that's set up, it's there for the executive powers and the ministers that you vote in. When you vote here in Canada, when they get up there to do their duty, they don't say, I promise to do my duty and help the people of Canada. It's not what they're saying. They don't say, I promise to do my best and give all my power and all my ability to help my fellow citizens, or help, they shouldn't even say that, but help the people of Canada. They don't. They swear allegiance and pledge allegiance to do Her Majesty's will and to do the best with that position on behalf of Her Majesty, for Her Majesty. So, and in this organization called Canada, well, guess what? It tells you what you can and cannot do, right? Through enactments and regulations, statutory powers, treating you as a statutory creature. So here you have many different organizations under law, but guess what they're doing? They're all using the same operations against us. They're all claiming that they have the right to tell us what we can and cannot do. And this video is not about a question if you believe in the Muslim doctrine, if you believe in the Christian doctrine, if you believe in the Mormon doctrine, if you believe in Judaism, that's fine, that's your choice. Mankind has a will, men and women have a will, and they have the right to decide and to use that will. And if you take a belief system upon you and live that belief system, who am I to judge you and say anything about what you're doing? As long as you don't harm your fellow men, I've got no problem with it. If you harm your fellow men, well then society will deal with it. But nevertheless, all these organizations, what they are really structured in law, what they're doing is they're ruling over you. They may set themselves up and say, I'm here on behalf of God, I'm here on behalf of a higher power, and that's why I'm telling you what to do. But the truth of the matter is that they are ruling over you. They're telling you what you can and cannot do. So for example, Sharia law tells a woman and men how you should dress. You should wear the hijab. You shouldn't be exposing yourself. You should dress in a certain way. You get into the Christian doctrines, into Christian Bibles, and they tell them also, you should wear some of the doctrines that they teach, you should be wearing long dresses, cover your body, don't expose your arms, whatever it may be. They're trying to control the way you dress. Same thing in Mormonism, same thing with Judaism, controlling how men and women should dress. Does the government of Canada do it through enactments and regulations? You betcha. You betcha. Just one example would have to be a student, right? If you're going to school and they're telling you, well, there's certain things that you shouldn't be wearing. And in fact, now we want you to be wearing uniforms when you come to school. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, that's not the point here. The point is that there's a power in operation that is forcing an individual to submit to it, and by submitting to it, they're being told what they can and cannot wear in clothing. Same thing, right? Now, for example, Sharia law would say no porn. Sorry, can't watch that. It's dirty, it's sinful, you're going to get in trouble in your spirit, in your soul. Stay away from it. If you don't, we can even harm you, hurt you physically. Christianity, through the Bible, same thing. Well, you shouldn't be watching porn. It's no good for your spirit. God won't be happy with you. It's a question, you could lose your soul eventually, blah, 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 blah. Mormonism, Judaism, the same thing. No porn. But now when you get to the Organization of Canada, through their enactments and regulations, they tell the individual, they control the individual, and they say, sure, you can have porn. You can watch it, no problem. But you can only watch what we allow you to watch. So you go into the Criminal Code of Canada, and they place limitations. And they place limitations upon what you can and cannot watch, which is a good thing, because that's under common law. That is a good thing. It gets very disgusting, that whole world. In a way it's natural, but in a way it can get very disgusting. So they put limitations on it, but the point being is, what are they doing? Again, they're controlling you. So Sharia law would tell you no pigs. Pigs are unclean, you shouldn't be eating that. Depending what Christianity, what doctrines you follow, what denomination you belong to, they'll tell you also no pig. Pig is unclean. If you eat it, you'll get sick. It causes microbes and bacteria in you. Stay away from it. Sometimes the Mormons teach that. Judaism teaches the same thing. Don't eat pigs. It's no good. What about Canada? Do they tell you can have pigs? Can you not have pigs? Sure they do, through their enactments and regulations. You're allowed to have pigs. You can eat pork meat, no problem. If you're an individual in Canada, we grant you the right to eat pigs, but you can't bring them in from China. So if you're going on an airplane and going to see your family in China and you're coming back and you want to bring some meat, some pig meat from China, no, sorry, you're not allowed. We're controlling your action, we're limiting your actions, and we're saying that you can't have that type of pig. You can go to the grocery store and you can buy the bacon and the pork chops down the street, but if you're flying in back from Jamaica and grandma made you some jerked pork and you want to bring it with you to eat it, and you're bringing it through the airport, they're going to say, no, sorry, can't bring this meat in here. So yeah, you're darn right they're controlling if you can eat pigs. Goes a little bit deeper than that. You're living in the city. Now, I'm not talking about if I agree with this or don't agree with this. I'm just showing you the operation of law again, the controlling mechanism that's out there. You're living in the city, you want to raise a pig, to raise it and slaughter it and get the meat, they'll tell you, oh no, you can't have a pig in the city. What are you doing? We have a bylaw here that says you can't have a pig. Now either bring it to the SPCA or get it out of here. You can't keep it. So you even go out into the suburbs and you get a pig, you get a little pen for it, and they say, okay, you can have it, but now you got to pay me a permit and a license to have this pig. And we're going to send an inspector to make sure that you're following our guidelines for you how to raise that pig. So yeah, they're controlling you. Now, look back into ISIS again, Muslim Sharia law. Say, you got to pay your tithe, right? You got to give into this, you got to give into the kingdom. In fact, when you study the Quran more, they ask for a tax from the unbeliever. If you're not going to convert to Sharia law, if you're not going to become a Muslim and believe it, and if they're going to allow you to continue to live, now I'm talking about the ISIS group there, if they're going to allow you to continue to live, well, you can pay a tax. And then it's acceptable as long as you pay a tax, and, that'll be good. If you're in Christianity, same thing. Well, you better pay your tithes. Malachi says you better pay your tithes and don't rob God. So, Mormon, also you got to pay your tithes. Going back into Christianity, I know Jehovah's Witnesses not really they don't consider them Christianities, but the Jehovah's Witnesses, under their doctrines, they got to pay 20%. 20% of their income got to go to the church. Judaism also, you got to support the synagogue. Well, what about Canada? You got to pay. You got to support the organization, of course. Canada says, you know what? You better pay your taxes. You got to pay taxes. Do your part. Mutual benefit of society. Pay your tithes. Mutual benefit. Will help the poor. If I was in any of these organizations, I would have a question to the leaders. I would say, well, when's the last time that you took any of this and did something? Hopefully they'll have a list and say we do all this, which would be good. But the majority of the time they won't. So what are we seeing here? What are we seeing through all this? Is that the primary thing here is that the individual is not being left alone. The individual, the man or the woman, is not being left alone to use their own will to decide what it is that they will or will not do, what it is that they will or will not accept. That choice, that power to choose, is being limited and abridged. The radical group ISIS have Sharia law. They say, these are the laws. You as an individual, you must obey. You have no choice. You must obey and submit. If you don't obey and submit, then we will kill you, most likely. As we see, that's what's going on across the world right now. The Muslim, again, I make a distinction between ISIS and Muslim. We have laws, Sharia law. You have to obey them. You have to pray 5 times a day. You have to wear your hijab. You have to come to the mosque. You have to abstain from watching evil things on television. You have to abstain from eating pig, for example. You have to submit to all this. If you don't want to submit to it, if you don't want to follow it, then get out. Kafir. That's what they call you. Unbeliever. Leave. We don't want you. You're Christian, and again, I'm using that word loosely because within Christianity there are a lot of denominations, but they have laws you must obey. You must obey the Bible, follow the Bible, do what the Bible says. Obey it and submit to it. So, you belong to a certain denomination, start questioning the pastor, start questioning the teaching, start questioning the doctrine. They'll tell you either submit or leave. Judaism, same thing. They have laws, you got to obey them, got to submit to them. If you don't like it, they say leave. Mormon, same thing. You got to follow our teachings, come to the temple, obey, submit to the teachings of Joseph Smith. If you don't want to, then leave. Get out of here. Now remember, behind the scenes here, all these organizations, they're just that. They're organizations. They're corporate bodies in law. And when you are a member of these organizations, you're a member of these churches, then you're a statutory creature. And they're telling you as a corporate body, what they're saying is, submit to what we teach, submit to our rules and regulations. If you don't want to, then leave. Get out of here. Great. Now we come to Canada. Corporate body in law. Executive powers running the show. And they say, we have laws, enactments, and regulations. You must obey them. We want you to submit to them. And if you don't, they say, we will punish you. We will punish you with fines and tickets, maybe even jail time, depending on what we're accusing you of, and maybe even the loss of your property. Now you have to submit. And you say, no, no. Just like here, I want to leave. And then they'll say to you, well, no, you can't. Sorry, you can't leave. Our laws, our enactments and regulations, you have to submit to them. You have to obey them. You can't just leave. Bull crap, I can't just leave. If I can leave here, then I can leave here. And I indeed can leave here, your corporate body, because in 1982, my individual fundamental rights and freedoms as a human being became protected and ensured within this corporate body. And if I decide to stand and exercise those individual fundamental natural human rights that are an essence and part of me, if I decide to exercise them, and by exercising them, I go here, you don't have the right to tell me, no, you can't. Do you see how horrible this is? In this aspect, besides the one above, well, they say we'll chop off your head and kill you if you don't submit. The rest of these powers that are still stealing from your individuality, they're still taking your choice away. They're assimilating you into their belief system and telling you how you can and cannot live. They're not allowing you as a man or a woman to make the choice for your own. And you may believe within inside yourself, well, I'm doing this to honor God, and I'm doing this because it's the right way to live. And by all means, then do it. But the point I'm bringing up here is the fact that they are telling you what you can and cannot do. They're removing your will. They're removing your choice to decide and saying that either do this, what we're telling you, or get out of here. Either submit or leave. That's the power that's in operation here. Now when we come to the corporate body Canada, their power is even worse. Their power is even more of a dark power. Why? Because they're saying you have to submit to all this, and if you don't submit to all this, we're not letting you go. We're going to beat you up. We're going to beat you up, not physically. We're not going to beat you up physically. We're going to beat you up with the laws. We're going to penalize you. We're going to punish you. We're going to give you tickets. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to make you lose your property. And by doing this to you, you're going to shut your little face and you're going to submit. Right? because that's the way it works here in Canada. So when one guy up here tells you, do what I say or I'll kill you, the rest say, do what I say or leave. This one says, do what I say or I'll beat you down. And I'll keep beating you down until you submit. Wonderful place we're living in. Canada is a corporate body. It's a corporation. As you've seen in my other videos, we, as inhabitants of the geographical area, have been incorporated into the corporate body. Now, they are saying it's their position, it's the Queen's position, it's the ministers of these agencies' positions, it's the Governor General's position that you must be part of it. You must be. You have no choice, no say, because you are a slave. You are a subject. You are a servant. Well, they won't tell you that to your face. They'll say to you, Canada, so beautiful, so free, the most free country in the world. Garbage. They've classified you, they've placed you into their corporate body, and they're telling you, you have to be a part of it. We will unilaterally, that's what they said, the court said that, we will unilaterally apply the laws of this corporate body against you, only subject to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is what, in essence, what they're saying is only subject to your human rights and fundamental freedoms. So we have to be part of the corporate body of Canada. You have to be incorporated into it. You're forced to serve it. Obey the enactments, obey the regulations, or figure out that you have a secondary set, which is actually your primary set of rights, individual human rights and freedoms, and use them to battle against the executive government and the restrictions of these rights. McDonald's. Most everybody knows what McDonald's is. It's a restaurant, golden arches. They have good hamburgers, well, depending if you like it, French fries, chicken McNuggets, all the great stuff that'll make you sick, clog up your arteries. McDonald's. It's a corporation in law. Now, I'd like to use that example. The executive power of that corporate body, his name is Mike. That's his name in my imaginary world. But he likes to be called the Queen. He's got a fetish, I guess. So he likes to be called the Queen. And now, he comes to you, the Queen, and he says, you must be part of our corporate body. You have to be. You've got no choice. You are a subject, you are a servant, you have to be part of the corporate body. Make any sense? Can the executive powers of McDonald's, we'll go back to it being Mike, I just use it as an analogy so you could see. Can the executive power, the president, the owner of McDonald's, come to you and say, okay, I want you to be part of my corporate body, this is the position you're going to work in. I'll even pay you, but you have to do it. You have no choice. You understand what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? You have no choice. And therein lies a limitation. No, he couldn't. He could come and make a proposal to me and say, well, if you're part of this corporation, here's what I offer. Because I'm going to give you a managerial position, you're going to get paid $85,000 a year. I don't know if that's what they pay. And medical bonuses. And 1 month vacation time. If you're interested, the job is yours. Now I sit back and I think about it and I decide, you know what? I'm going to be part of that corporation. I'm going to accept that job. Hey, Mike, I accept. I'm going to come and work for you. He says, great. Come, I want to talk to you about something. I go meet him. He says, here are the rules and regulations that govern your position, that govern the job that you're going to be doing. So get familiar with them and make sure you don't break them, because if you break them, there's consequences to it. These are the rules that govern your position in our corporate body. Well, guess what? You don't even get a choice with Canada. You don't even get a choice with our Queen, with our executive powers. They say, hey, you, Billy, Mary, Joseph, John, whoever you are, you're going to be part of this corporate body. And we are drafting you into the corporate body because our rules and regulations say we can. So here you go. Now you're part of the corporate body. And now you must obey our rules and regulations. And if you don't, we will punish you. We will give you penalties. We will fine you. We will even go so far as take away your personal property and take away your freedom and put you in jail until you submit to the rules and the regulations of our corporate body. And shut your face because you don't have a choice. Be quiet. You have nothing to say. What the hell is that? Does that make sense? To anybody watching my video, does that make sense? Are we here on earth to be living under such power, under such dominion? No, we're not. And again, I say, because of 1982, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the new Constitution Act here in Canada, this forced action upon us, telling us you must be part of the corporate body, it doesn't work anymore. You can't do it. I have fundamental rights and freedoms as a human being. I have a right to choose. I have a right to decide. I have a right to choose who I will subject myself to and who I will be a part of. Whether it's a church organization, whether it's a religious organization, whether it's a corporation that's offering to pay me money to work, or whether it's your corporate body, Mrs. Queen, and the royal family. I have the right as a single human being to decide. And that right is protected and safeguarded in the Constitution Act of 1982. And as R. versus Haynes said, since the advent of the Charter, now I have the ability to go against the executive powers of this corporate body and say, what are you doing? It shouldn't be like this. As individual men and women, we should just have the right to say, no, that's it. I make a decision, no, that's it. I'm not part of the corporate body. I'm not an officer of Canada operating in an office of Canada. End of story. It's my choice. But the courts will turn around and say, no, you can't say that. You can't do that. We will unilaterally, we will force you to obey the laws here in this corporate body unless you can prove to us that by forcing us to obey these corporate laws, these enactments and regulations, that we are breaching your fundamental rights and freedoms as contained within the Charter. Now that's a big responsibility. That's a heavy burden to put upon an individual's back, when all you do within the law and the structure of law is hide fundamental rights and freedoms. Great prime example, you go into the Constitution of Russia, and they're not afraid to express natural rights and human rights and fundamental freedoms. They specifically state that men have rights and citizens have rights. Our legislators, our government, the people who work in our government, when they created the Constitution Act of 1982, when they were going to deal and talk about men and women and their rights as natural human beings, natural rights and freedoms, human rights and freedoms, they hid it. They used the word everyone, as you've seen in my video. Have to understand that Article 7 of the Constitution Act of Canada only refers to human beings, not artificial entities, not classes of persons. How are you going to figure all this out? Huh? Not our problem. Here's our problem. You're our slave, you're our subject, and we will unilaterally apply all these enactments and regulations against you unless you can prove to us that we're limiting and abridging your charter right. So go, read the charter, and see if you can make heads or tails of it. Go, read the charter, and see if you can understand that natural law, positive law, substantive rights are being expressed in that document. No, you know why? Because when we gave you an education, when you were in school, in pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, grade 1 to grade 6, into high school, we never taught you about the Charter. We never taught you about human rights and freedoms, even though we had the obligation to do so. Why? For that one particular reason. So that when and if you ever woke up to this fact here, and what's going on with you here, then you wouldn't know how to use this to get out of this. Welcome to our wonderful country called Canada.